Dreams.
This is the letter they found upon the sailor they rescued on that fateful day. It is written in an unsteady hand. St. Christopher, guide the hand of this poor sinner as you guide sailors to safe harbor, that my words may protect those who come after me, and that in death some measure of my sins may be forgiven. My name is Diego, son of Hernan. I was a sailor upon the ship called the Commendador, sailing with the Lazarillo under the command of Captain Zamacona. A terrible storm, the kind of which I have never witnessed before, not even at Cape Horn, shattered the Commendador upon the shore. But even in the face of this omen, we were not deterred. We began to claim the land, building many forts to protect us and stake our claim. But there is a curse here, a curse that enslaves our flesh as we sought to enslave the flesh of others. It was blasphemous to think that we could overcome this curse, for it is the judgment of God. Night after night, they took our friends, but we suffered more when they returned. Everything we see here is a reflection of our sins. Inez, Zamacona, the Mound, forgive me. My thoughts are unclear. I hear the voices coming closer. My end is upon me. Holy Mary, Mother of God, cover my soul with your mantle, that what is left of my soul may be saved. Amen. These are the words of Father Melchor de la Peña, as recorded within the journal discovered at the first fort. On some dark nights, I wondered whether the Lord disapproved of my studies, whether I should turn away from the darkness rather than face it. But now I am filled with joy, for he has blessed our expedition, and I am now certain that the rumors hinted at in the forbidden documents are true, and the city of Tzarth is more than mere myth. Scattered throughout the jungle, we have discovered pagan shrines filled with treasures made of dark metal. These treasures have been wrought with remarkable skill. It is true that they have been used in service of abominations, in rites of blood and darkness, but the skill with which they were made must be a gift from the Lord. Therefore, it is righteous for us to take them and repurpose them for holy ends. My experimentations have revealed that the medallions have certain properties of attraction which may be employed to discover further shrines. I therefore believe that we are being guided by divine providence to seize these treasures from the hands of the idolaters and to put them to better use in the service of God and Spain. Let no man call this plunder, for our actions are sanctified by purpose and baptized in the name of the true faith. These were the final words in the journal of Benjamin de Castro, Inez's tutor. If only we had listened to the Mapuche. I thought them savages, their stories of impossible beasts in the jungle mere superstition. I laughed at Inez for taking their foolishness seriously. Is this what you abandoned your studies in Venice for? I said to her. To squander the rare privilege of learning on such trifles? You, who can read Latin and Greek and discourse freely on Aristotle, filling your journals with the gibberings of painted men who live in fear of ghosts. You dishonor your teachers, by which I meant you dishonor me. But it was I who was ignorant, and now we have paid the price for my ignorance. The truth was far worse than the wildest superstition. We have disturbed a power far greater than we could have imagined. Again and again, its foul armies fell upon us from the dark, and none of our defenses were enough. Then came the final blow. Zamakona, Inez, Father Melkor, all of them taken, lost, vanished into the Mound. We should be brave, should confront the darkness and rescue them. But as I write, the anchor is about to be raised. When I board the ship, I will have finally failed in my duty. I will have left Inez to die, or worse, be transformed. But though we will pray for the lost, we will not return. Salvatierra has lost his mind, but he still has followers willing to shed blood for his madness. We cannot risk staying here any longer. May God forgive us. This journal was written in the fevered hand of Baltasar de Salvatierra, the captain of the Lazarillo. So they run. The cowards turn their backs on me, stealing my ship, their sails as full as their hearts are empty. At the end they are all soft, softer even than Zamakona. Their blood is thin, like clever old Benjamins, meant for counting coins, not holding a sword. No soldier amongst them, no true son of Spain. Just frightened children lost in the trees. They know nothing of loyalty, and flee at the whisper of danger. I should have killed them when I had the chance. They were not wrong when they said that this place is hell, and what lies beneath it is Tartarus itself. There are devils in the jungle, abominations in the eyes of the Lord. The trees are suffused with hatred. Filthy insects writhe in the ground. The water is poison, the air is foul, and the things that move in the shadows are blasphemy itself. But were we sent here to tremble before this new world, or were we sent to conquer it? Christ went down to hell and returned with souls. I go down to take the throne itself. Let them flee. I will remain. I will find Zamakona. I will dig up the ground with my bare hands if I must. I, Baltasar de Salvatierra, will claim the city of Tsarth. Not for the crown, but for myself. I shall carve my dominion from the bones of Tsarth and crown myself in its gold. The earth shall shake, the jungle shall burn, and from the ashes my new kingdom shall rise. These words were written in a blood-drenched journal without a name. I have finally come to understand what is going on. I feared for some time that I was insane, but it is not so. My revelations began as we fled deeper into this chaos of trees and mud, trying in desperation to escape Captain Salvatierra. They say he was a great man once, a man with the soul of a warrior who served the crown with pride. If that man existed, he is gone now, consumed by hubris. The night before we fled, I heard him speaking Latin, but his words were not prayers. He was threatening God himself, saying he would commit such atrocities upon this land that they would mar creation itself. When we arrived at this fort, we witnessed an unholy sorcery which filled us with terror. We saw with our own eyes the Lazarillo appear as if out of thin air, accompanied only by the screams of the crew as she fell to the ground. Then came the beasts, the demons of the underworld, and dragged the survivors away to the Mound. It is near us now, that unholy place where Zamakona disappeared, taking Inez and Father Melkor with him. but I do not need to see its terrible blue light to know where we are. The signs are all around us, and we should have known from the first omen. This is a land that God created in anger to imprison men like Salvatierra, men like myself. For what am I? What is any soldier but another Salvatierra, another Cain shedding the blood of his brothers? We are in hell, and we deserve it. This journal was written in the careful, studied hand of Inez. The Mapuche whisper many stories about this region, and there is a curious mix of wonder and terror in these folk tales. Some would dismiss this as the inconsistency of barbaric myth, but I believe there is a more tangible reality here. Centuries of history condensed into legend. Despite whatever riches may lie in this land, the Mapuche did not claim it and settled only on its borders. The rest, they said, belonged to the people of Canyan, who live deep under the earth. They are the builders of the city of Tsath and makers of many wonders. They worship Yig, the father of serpents, and Great Tulu, which I believe to be another name for Cthulhu, the being mentioned in the Pnakotic manuscripts that I translated in the Libreria Publica di San Marco. Yig is said to be the principle of life. Great Tulu is a spirit of universal harmony. That is what they say. But then, what is said and what is true is not always the same. The Mapuche do not worship these gods, and for all the wonders they attribute to the Kenyani, they also deeply fear them. The darker tales, which I believe to be of later origin, say that the Kenyani must not be disturbed, that they are a fallen people, consumed by an inner evil. I cannot help but wonder whether they say the same about us. I believe that the following words were written by Captain Zamakona himself. In the course of my inquiries into the ancient history of the world, I have encountered persistent echoes of a city called Tsath, whose name appears only in oblique forms. A single syllable in an ancient funerary chant, a glyph that appears in certain scrolls held in Rome, a word in the fevered tale told by a shipwrecked Portuguese soldier. The name is older than any tongue still spoken, and perhaps older than man himself. But the echoes do not end there. There is a visionary account by a mad poet, now seized by the Inquisition, which speaks of a subterranean kingdom ruled by princes of darkness. There is a sacred book that tells of a cavernous paradise beneath the earth, and a prescribed narrative of a land called Zinain, where masters of transformation dwell. We must draw a bold conclusion. There exists a buried realm, older than Babel, known to scattered peoples who share no language or blood. Perhaps it is merely an allegory, but if it is more, should we not discover the truth? These words were written by Captain Salvatierra in a private notebook. When they tell the tales of war, they do not speak of the counting of the dead. I know each name. I have recited them in prayer more times than I can say. We have left the war behind us, but still they haunt me. The men look to me for answers I cannot give. I see the fear in their eyes. The jungle eats away at them, not only their flesh, but their faith. They tell stories of whispering trees, of the ground moving beneath them, and the ghosts, always following us, always watching us. Are they the ghosts of our dead? I must not falter. No good captain may share his fear, Were I to waver, even once, the men would break like a rotted hull in a storm. They must believe I do not doubt, that I do not mourn, that I have not asked the Lord why he has led us into a land so far from Eden. If I show grief, if I show weakness like Zamakona, it will spread. If I allow mercy to soften the rod, it will become a contagion, and all discipline shall fail. We are far from home, and we are not many. Every soul must hold, or we are lost. I have buried too many to let that be the end of our story. So I will bear it in silence. I will speak with strength, though my voice is hollow. I will command with certainty, though my heart grows heavier with each passing day. If they call me harsh, let them do so. I will be obeyed. For in obedience there is life, in doubt there is only death. Let the Lord judge me when all is done. I ask only that he count the lives I have preserved, not only the ones I have lost. These words were found on a page of the journal that the sailors recovered that day. I believe the journal belonged to Inez. Today we came upon a village our guides had told us about, the last settlement before the forbidden lands of the Kenyani, where the Mound is said to lie. To our dismay, the village had been abandoned. There had clearly not been a battle, but an orderly if hasty evacuation. The earth was still warm where embers had smouldered. Cooking pots sat half full. Children's toys lay heaped in careful piles. They had not been driven away, but chosen to go. Captain Salvatierra dismissed the whole matter as the itinerancy of primitive tribes, and was infuriated by the suggestion of any other possibility. But the Mapuche had lived here for many years. Surely to them this place was not a wilderness to wander through, but the place where they had been born, the place that all the sweet memories of childhood bound them to. And yet it seems that our search for the Mound has frightened them enough to abandon their settlement, to leave behind hearth and home. I do not believe that they would make such a choice over mere superstition, no matter what Salvatierra thinks. The Mapuche are not thoughtless animals, but children of the same God as we, gifted with the power of reason. Zamakona agrees with me, and yet he pushes on. If there is a darkness here, he says, then it must be confronted by the light of that same reason which we share with the Mapuche. These are the notes taken by Captain Zamakona regarding the Mapuche village. I had heard many tales of the Mapuche before arriving in this land. Some painted them as fiends in human shape, as Captain Salvatierra sees them. Primitives driven by bloodlust and ignorance, worshippers of idols and eaters of flesh. Others spoke of them as Inez does, with a kind of reverence, calling them pure-hearted, unspoiled by greed, as though this jungle were Eden and they had been spared the fall. But here I have looked into their eyes, heard their tales, watched them go about their lives. They are neither demons nor angels. They are men, and as all men, they are both brave and foolish. For many years they have lived in their village near the Mound, that hill which is said to be the entrance to the underworld of Kenyan. They would not approach the Mound, and spoke of it only in hushed tones. It will be easy to dismiss this as superstition, but the Mapuche know this land better than we do. If they fear the Mound enough to abandon their village solely because of our expedition, it must be for good cause. And yet, without risk, there can be no understanding, and without understanding, there can be no true safety. After all, Would it not have been better for the Mapuche if they had known of the wild and dangerous men that live in the strange and distant land of Spain? The following pages come from the journal that was found near the mound itself. Most of this journal was written by Zamacona in his typical shorthand, in small, cramped letters that would take even the greatest scholar some time to decipher. But on the first page, Inez had left a note. This is what it said. "The hour of my death is upon me. I escaped from the abominations of the underworld, only to meet my fate at the hands of human madness. When I emerged from the depths, Captain Salvatierra fell upon me with a knife, and though he has since fled, the wound is too grave. I will not live much longer. In all the years of my short life, I have sought understanding of God's creation. What we discovered in the depths of Canaan has shaken my beliefs about the history of our world, so that I fear that even in the slumber of death I will dream of Tzath and Yoth and Dread and Kai. But no matter how dark my dreams, I will not abandon my belief that the Creator blessed us with the light of reason for a purpose, even if his creation is greater and more terrible than we had once imagined. If you follow in my footsteps, heed my words carefully. There are 5 cylinders of the metal they call Cthulhu. Find them by seeking the lights in the sky and take them from their altars. Only in this manner may the pillar of light that guards the entrance to Canaan be broken. But do not do this if you seek treasure, for you will find death, and perhaps something worse than death. Go forward now only if you seek salvation, for I believe that anyone who finds Zamacona and saves him from his fate will be blessed by the Father above." Here follows the first entry in Zamacona's journal. The narrative of Pamphilo de Zamacona in Núñez, concerning the subterranean world of Canaan. I believe that I am not a man of the world as it is today. Sometimes I believe I belong to the past, to the age of philosophy. At other times I believe that I belong to a distant future, in which our world of the present appears foolish and old-fashioned. But the Lord has decided that I must live in this age of transformation, and I must do my best to be a good man. I have long sought the fabled city of Tzath, and the realms that pertain to it, for in certain ancient documents it is remembered as a city of great learning, a capital of science and philosophy from a time long before the golden ages of Athens, Baghdad, or Constantinople. And it is now, as our world struggles to claw itself out of the darkness of feudal superstition, to rid itself of monarchy and dogma, that the wisdom of the ancients is most sorely needed. I will not waste my time telling the story of how I discovered rumors of the Mound in ancient manuscripts dismissed by most scholars, save for Inez. Nor will I tell of the many journeys that led us to this forgotten stretch of land, for I must tell you the history of Canaan itself, as relayed to me by its remaining inhabitants. The people of Canaan are almost infinitely ancient, for the world itself is more ancient than we know. They came here from a distant star, where physical conditions are much like those of our humble earth. Even to them, that age is one of legends now. But they remember that they were brought to this world following the signs and omens of great Cthulhu, and in ages long gone they populated the surface of the earth and built a great city at the South Pole near the mountain Kadath. With the passing of ages, fewer and fewer ever dared to come to Canaan, and eventually the entrances were no longer guarded. The mass of the people forgot, except through distorted memories and myths and some very singular dreams, that an outer world existed, though educated folk never ceased to recall the essential facts. And so, upon our arrival, we were treated with great curiosity and questioned eagerly about the fabulous outer regions. Here follows the second entry in Zamakona's journal. We were told many wondrous things in our first days in Kanyan. For example, we learned that during the past few thousand years the phenomena of old age and death had been conquered, so that men no longer grew feeble or died except through violence or will. Furthermore, the people of Kanyan had mastered a technique by which mind ruled over matter, and flesh could be transmuted into energy and back. There were many mechanical inventions of great ingenuity which made the business of life easier, leaving time for pleasure and philosophy. Indeed, even the bodies of the dead could be galvanized into a new effectiveness with the right mechanisms. Our hosts spoke poetically of the great cities of Kanyan, Bagra, a marvel of finely wrought gold with its narrow curving streets and its roofs bursting into a multitude of pinnacles, the proud machine cities on the gorse-grown plain of Nith, where silver-steel transportation machines threaded land, water and air, and the miraculous devices of the valley of Dochna. And of course, above them all, the monstrous, gigantic, omnipotent city of Tsath, whose vast shimmering spires rose so high that upon seeing it, most strangers mistook it for a mountain. I was enraptured by the tales of the Kenyani and the majestic achievements that we were allowed to glimpse. If I could convince the people of this realm to share their discoveries with us, we could transform the world above. Inyas, too, was spellbound, in her own way, by the great complexity of artistic forms produced by the Kenyani, which to me seemed almost incomprehensible. At the bottom of the page, Zamakona has added, "For all that followed, I do not think that we were wrong to celebrate the beauty of these discoveries." Here follows the third entry in Zamakona's journal. I will not say that Father Melkor's faith was weak, for that would be a lie. I will say instead that he saw all those things in our world which others attribute to the fall, and asked himself whether they too were the work of God. If the Lord made the whirlwind and the tiger, did he not also make the beings that inhabit the caverns of the earth? When we first met the Kenyani, he would attempt to speak to them of the faith of the cross, and indeed it seemed that religion was a leading interest in Kanyan, and our host spent many hours in conversation with the father, asking him about the holy books and sacred rites of his faith. This is where I perceive something strange, beyond the unsettling forms of our hosts and their servants. For their interest in religion seemed not philosophical or theological, but purely aesthetic. The father did not perceive this and became drawn more deeply into these discussions, and from there into religious matters of a much darker nature. In Kanyan there are many temples. The most richly constructed are those to great Cthulhu, the spirit of universal harmony, while the cryptic shrines of Yig, the father of serpents, are almost as lavish and remarkable. In these places, Father Melkor was initiated into the mysteries of the underworld, learning much of the sacred rites and mysterious techniques of Kanyan. But these were not enough to quench his thirst. "There is something divine in that darkness," he told me. "Something of such great beauty and perfection that it can only have been made by the hands of the Lord. I must witness it with my own eyes." Though I understood that his crime was severe, I recoiled at the horror that was inflicted upon him, and the joy his captors seemed to take in this punishment. And then gradually I began to understand. Here follows the fourth entry in Zamarcona's journal. In truth, the world of Kunyan was built upon conquest and slavery. Formerly, several races had inhabited the underground world. In the course of time, however, the men of Tsarth had conquered and enslaved the rest, interbreeding them by their arts with certain horned and four-footed animals into the slave beasts they called Gyayothan, and for industrial purposes they created the Yimbi, a slave class made from the bodies of the dead. Those who were considered lesser, as well as those who spoke against the orthodoxy of their time, were consigned to this class. What they had told us about their achievements was no lie. The lie was that these things yet persisted, for in truth theirs was a world of ignorance and decay. All their great inventions had been created in the pursuit of liberty, but that strand of their culture, the strand of true enlightenment, had been cut short. They had long ago dismissed all values and principles as illusions. History was neglected, and science was at best a parlor trick. The purpose of life was to feel rather than to think, so that men were now more highly esteemed for inventing new diversions than for preserving old facts or pushing back the frontier of cosmic mystery. This is what Father Melchior had failed to understand. What was desired from religion was the aesthetic and emotional exaltation bred by the mystical moods and sensuous rites which attended the faith. Not truth, not belief, but a hollow imitation of the ecstasy of revelation to distract them from the moral abyss at the decaying center of their civilization. I fear that I have seen the same emptiness in certain men of consequence in Spain. Here follows the final entry in Zamarcona's journal. Much of Kunyan is deserted now. I discovered that, though immortal, many of the people of Kunyan chose long ago to die, tiring of a world where stagnation reigns. The great machinery of Nith is in ruins. The silver steel transportation machines exist only in museums. What remains of daily life consists of games, intoxication, torture of slaves, daydreaming, orgies, rituals, and experiments, all increasingly cruel and abnormal. Inez, having learned much of the literature and philosophy of Kunyan, tells me it is abstruse and insincere, a hall of mirrors, in which meaningless aesthetic contortions replace the pursuit of revelation. The old tradition of rationalism degenerates more and more into fanatical and orgiastic superstition, centering in adoration of great Cthulhu, all the more manic for its lack of true faith, and what little tolerance there once was is steadily dissolving into a series of frenzied hatreds, especially toward the outer world, populated as it is by devils. We must escape. Even in this darkness there is still hope. A woman called Tlayub has approached us. It would seem that she is an apostate, a brave citizen opposed to the path the Kunyan has taken. She has offered to help Inez and myself escape, at great risk to her own life. She says there are 3 spherical devices by means of which the Kunyani control the bodies of their slaves. If we cast these into the abyss, their power over the dead will be undone, and perhaps in that act all of us will find some measure of freedom. But she fears a dark apparition, which is said to haunt the caves by which we mean to escape. Perhaps the spirit of great Cthulhu himself. I fear there is nothing we can do now but be brave and look to the light of reason. It is later than I thought. We must go.
If you're still listening, I want to say thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the stories of an old man in this mythical world of the Mound, omen of Cthulhu. Good night, everyone. Till next time.